The Porsche 911 comes in many flavors: coupe, convertible, Targa. But there is one body style that's designed to deliver driving pleasure in its purest form: the Speedster. A roofless model designed to create a more direct connection between the driver, their environment, and the machine.
Might be the ultimate example of that concept. This is the rather lovely Guntherwerks Speedster, built by a California-based company whose sole mission is to take old Porsches to the next level. And in terms of looks and sound, they have done exactly that. This thing is lovely. The Speedster is very, very exclusive, particularly the 993 version from 1995. It's so exclusive that only 2 people actually own one: Ferdinand Porsche himself and, bizarrely, the comedian Jerry Seinfeld. And that means you can't have one. But for the princely sum of $850,000, Guntherwerks will build you the next best thing.
Here's how it works. You supply your own 993 Cabriolet or Targa, or Guntherwerks will find you one. They then set to work remastering it from the ground up. And there are considerable changes, not least with the eye-catching wide body kit. The wider front bumper allowed Guntherwerks to remove one of the 2 oil coolers for weight saving, but to reposition the remaining one so it faces the airflow rather than being perpendicular to it. All body panels except the doors are swapped for carbon fiber, again to reduce weight. The carbon bonnet, for example, is 25% lighter than standard. It has a smaller, steeper windscreen from a 994 Speedster that saves yet more weight, although if you want to go even more extreme, you can opt to have it removed completely. Aluminium mirrors resemble the ones found on the 991 Speedster concept. At the back of the car, highlights include 3D printed Inconel exhaust tips attached to a lightweight valved exhaust from a 997 GT3. As for wheels, meanwhile, there are many styles to choose from, including these, with a carbon barrel and turbo-inspired spokes, angled to help extract heat from the brakes. The rubber is plentiful. At the rear, 335s, and at the front, a truly enormous set of 295 section tires.
And then there's the big one, the roof. This car doesn't actually have one, not even as an option. Guntherwerks start with a donor car, either a Cabriolet or Targa, and then remove the roof and replace it with their own bespoke rear deck and twin buttresses, and they look absolutely incredible. Underneath, you'll find additional bracing to strengthen the chassis, and also some rollover hoops underneath these carbon fiber covers. But there's another trick up this car's sleeve. If I push a button on the inside, these actually open up to give you extra storage space and come with an optional leather pouch, perfectly sized for your favorite bottle of champagne.
There's also additional storage under the front trunk in an exquisitely tailored storage compartment that is, again, finished in carbon fiber. That space almost rivals the interior for attention to detail. It's a feast of carbon, leather, and metal, with a set of newly developed carbon buckets, an aluminium shifter, and updated dials.
Finally, there's a ducktail spoiler, in front of which is a ram air scoop feeding cool air into the star of the show, the 4-litre naturally aspirated air-cooled flat 6. And isn't that an absolute work of art? Just look at this air filter. Stunning. And this fan actually has an interesting history. It was actually redesigned by an aircraft engine manufacturer who reprofiled the blades in order to help increase the amount of airflow to help it develop even more power. Now, I'm in a bit of a privileged position here because although you might have seen the Guntherwerks Speedster on the internet before, this particular car has had some changes. This functions as the company's development mule, and that means the engine has been upgraded slightly. It now features a slide throttle, again with the intention of producing even more power. The thing I love most about this though is just the look of the engine bay. It's lined in this really exquisite leather and gold, and it isn't adorned with all the extras you find normally in an engine bay. For example, the power steering pump or the air conditioning unit and the lines and the brackets associated with all those extra gubbins. Those have actually been moved to the front and replaced with electric units in order to help improve weight and weight distribution. On the original car, it had a 70-30 weight distribution, and now this is closer to 60-40. So Guntherwerks' idea is to build a 993 that Porsche would build if Porsche still built 993s. But importantly, they didn't want to modernize it too much. They wanted to keep the driving experience as authentic and analog as possible. And I tell you what, they might have actually nailed it. This car just feels so alive. Every single one of its components just talks to you. The first thing you want to do when you get inside is to feed it some revs. Wow! It revs to 7,800 RPM, and all of that noise is being fed through a back box from a 997 GT3. Even at low revs, it's got this aggressive, burbling baritone to it. But then when you send it up into the high revs, wow! The noise just echoes off the canyon walls, and because I haven't got any windows or a roof, I hear every single bit of it. So can half of California. The steering is really good, maybe not as feelsome as the original 993. Guntherwerks have gotten rid of the hydraulic power steering system and replaced it with an E-Pass electrically operated power steering, but it's still plenty good. There's loads of feedback through the corners, and it feels so involving. The ergonomics are a little bit weird actually. The steering wheel is offset to the right-hand side slightly, as are the pedals, so you feel like you're almost driving this car side saddle. But that's not Guntherwerks' fault. That's a Porsche design quirk. In terms of these seats, massively supportive, especially around the shoulders. It just gives you the confidence to push through the bends. And just going back to the pedals, the spacing is spot on, allowing you to heel and toe. But the pedal box is on the small side, and that means, weirdly, I'm having to drive it in my socks. Oh, wow. Can you tell I'm having fun? The brakes are really good too. These are steels. Carbon ceramics are available, but the brake pedal feel is nicely judged. There is ABS, but it very rarely kicks in. But there is no stability control, so you've got to be very careful getting on the power out of the bends. I keep having to remind myself, this thing's worth nearly £1 million. The engine is super responsive. Not just because it's NA, but also because it's got a lightweight single mass flywheel. It's so quick to spin up.
Originally, this car had a 3.6-litre naturally aspirated flat 6, but Guntherwerks sends it away to another company, Ross Sport Racing, for boring out to 4.0. And because we now have slide injectors on this car, power is up to 440 horsepower and torque is quoted at 455 Newton meters. It might not seem like much, but the total weight is only 1,174 kilograms, so it's rapid.
Guntherwerks don't quote any 0 to 60 times with this car, but that's not important. What is important It's just enjoying the experience and interacting with the car, using the steering wheel, the pedals, and that gearbox. The gearbox could be better actually. The distance between first and third and second and fourth, they're a little close together. And that means sometimes you do make the odd mistake, but that's all part of the fun, isn't it? These tyres are interesting. Continental Extreme Contact Sport. I haven't had a great deal of experience with this rubber, but they've installed it particularly because the sidewalls are a little softer than the equivalent Pirellis, and that, they say, suits the character of the car. It is a drop top after all. You can really feel the squidginess, not just in a straight line, but in the bends. It just gives the car that little bit of compliance. You lean on them as you go into a bend, but there's still plenty of grip and traction. Yeah, they really work, as they should. They're 13 inches wide at the rear, 11 inches wide at the front. The best way to sum up this car is to say that it's a time machine. It takes you back to an era when the people who built these things really cared about the people who drove them and how it made them feel. But it's also a time machine in the sense that it brings the 993 platform bang up to date. It's a classic, but also a modern icon.